All right, so the next set of notes that we have are operations and compositions of functions. We're going to start with operations because it's something we've already done before. It's just learning a new way to write it and understand the way that it's written. So we're going to start with if f of x equals 3x minus 7 and g of x equals 13 minus 2x, we're going to find f of x plus g of x. So we're just adding them together. So 3x minus 7 plus 13 minus 2x. And then we just combine like terms. So 3x and negative 2x is just x, and negative 7 plus 13 is 6, so x plus 6. So a different way to write that is that you put the f plus g in one set of parentheses of x equals x plus 6. In this next table, it has all of the ways that we can denote the different operations we can do with functions. So the sum, which we just did, f plus g of x, is the same as f of x plus g of x. F minus g of x is the same as f of x minus g of x. The product, so f times g of x, is the same as f of x times g of x. And then the quotient, so f divided by g of x, is the same as f of x divided by g of x. So our first example, we have f of x, f plus g of x. So we're going to rewrite that as f of x plus g of x. So if you look in the directions above this, it tells you what f of x and g of x are. So f of x is x squared minus 8x plus 4. And then g of x is 4x minus 3. So we have f of x and we're adding g of x to it. So now it's just combining like terms. So there aren't any more x squared, so that's going to stay x squared. And then we have negative 8x plus 4x. So negative 8 plus 4 is negative 4x. And then 4 plus negative 3 is 1. And then, so that is our answer for f plus g of x. So this is our final answer. All right, so for number 2, we have f minus h of x, which is the same as f of x minus h of x. So f of x we just used is x squared minus 8x plus 4, and then we are subtracting x plus 2 from that. Now, to make this easier, we're actually going to make this minus sign a negative 1 and distribute it into here. So we have x squared minus 8x plus 4, and then negative 1 times x is minus x, and then negative 1 times 2 is negative 2. So now all we have to do are combine like terms. So once again, we don't have any more x squareds, so we have x squared, and then negative 8x minus x is negative 9x, and then 4 and negative 2 is 2, so plus 2. So f minus h of x, and there we go. And that's our answer for that one. Right, so for number 3, we have h g of x, which is the same as h of x times g of x. So h of x is x plus 2, and g of x is 4x minus 3. Now to multiply these, we just use what most people call FOIL. You can think of it as distributing twice. So let's do that. So we have x times 4x, which is 4x squared, x times negative 3, which is negative 3x. Sorry, that was my elbow. 2 times 4x, so plus 8x. And then 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. So then combine like terms here. So we have 4x squared plus 5x minus 6. So that is h of g of x. And that is our final answer. And there we go. So moving on to number 4, we have f over h of x, which is the same as f of x divided by h of x. So f of x is x squared minus 8x plus 4, and then h of x, which it's divided by, is x plus 2. So now we have a trinomial divided by a binomial. Okay. There are a couple of ways we can do this. We can either use long division or we can use synthetic division. I will do both because I know there are some people that prefer either or. So with synthetic division, we'll do first because it's going to fit in this space right here. You take what you're dividing by, so this is x plus 2, and you switch this sign so that it's negative 2. And then you get the coefficients only of what is being divided. So the coefficient of x squared is 1. This coefficient is negative 8, and then our constant is 4. So bring down this 1. So negative 2 times this one down here is negative 2. So negative 2 goes there, and then add these two, which is why I wrote up a sign there. So negative 8 plus negative 2 is negative 10. Multiply the negative 2 times the negative 10, and you get positive 20. And then add those, and you get 24. And now remember, to write our answer, you go to your original thing that's being divided, so x squared, and you go one exponent less than that. So it starts at x, and then this is now our constant, so minus 10, and this is our remainder, so plus 24 over what we divided by, so x plus 2. So this is our final answer. And now we're going to do the same thing using long division for those of you that want long division. So the x plus 2 goes on the outside, and x squared minus 8x plus 4 goes underneath the divisor sign. So now you have to look at x and figure out how many times x goes into x squared. So just to get x to x squared, we need to multiply by x. So that goes there. So x times x is x squared. And then x times 2 is 2x. So you're going to plus 2. And just like regular long division, you're going to subtract here. So the x squareds go away. So we have negative 8x minus 2x. So that makes negative 10x. Bring down the 4. So plus 4. And now, what do you have to multiply x by to get negative 10x? Which is negative 10. So negative 10 times x is negative 10x. Negative 10 times 2 is negative 20. And then we're subtracting. So the negative 10x's go away. And then we have 4 minus negative 20, which is 24. So then we have plus 24 over x plus 2. So there are two ways to divide, which we did almost right before we got out of, not really got out of school, just are no longer in the school building. So those are two ways to do division. All right, so for number 5, now we have numbers involved. Okay, so what this means is instead of leaving it in terms of x, we're going to have a single digit answer. So this becomes f of negative 2 plus g of negative 2. So f of x is, I gotta turn my page here to get the correct one. So f of x is 2x squared minus x minus 12, and g of x is x plus 7. Okay, so now we're going to plug negative 2 in for x in both of these first. So we have 2 times negative 2 squared minus negative 2 minus 12. All right, we're going to do this first. And for about the 100th time this year, we're going to talk about the correct order to do this because we are still messing this up. You always do exponents first. So -2 squared is +4. So we have 2 times 4. And then this minus a negative becomes plus, and then -12. And now do the multiplication. So 2 times 4 is 8. So if 8 plus 2 minus 12. So 8 plus 2 is 10. Minus 12 is -2. Oops, -2, not -12. I was looking at one thing and trying to write another. So we have -2. And now we're going to plug -2 in for x over here. So we have -2 plus 7, which is 5. And then our final step is doing this last addition because we're taking what we get for f of x and we're adding it to what we get for g of x. So we have -2 plus 5, which is 3. So f plus g of -2 equals 3. And voila. All right, so for number 6, we have f minus g of 8. So we have f of 8 minus g of 8. So we have 2 times it's a -2. I did not see the -2 in the last one, so just stick with this work and we'll correct the -2 here. So we have -2 times 8 squared minus 8 minus 12 minus, we'll ignore that minus sign for now. And then let's just plug 8 in for g of x, which is 8 plus 7. So start with the squared. So 8 squared is 64. So we have -2 times 64 minus 8 minus 12. So -2 times 64 is -128 minus 8 minus 12. So we have -128 minus 20. So we have -148 for that one. Then 8 plus 7 is 15. And now we're going to pull these two numbers over here. So we have -148 minus 15. And because I don't feel like doing the math in my head, 148. And this is -163. So f minus g of 8 equals -163. And there we go. Moving on to number 7. So f times g of 1. So f of 1 times g of 1. So -2 times 1 squared minus 1 minus 12. And then 1 plus 7. We'll just stick with this. That one's easy. That's 8. So 1 squared is 1. So -2 times 1 minus 1 minus 12. So -2 times 1 is -2. Minus 1 minus 12. And then if you add all of these up or subtract all of them, technically, we have -15 for f of 1. Now we're multiplying these. So we have -15 times 8. So 15 times 8 is 120. So f of fg of 1 is -120. There we go. And number 8. So we have f divided by g of 5. So we have f of 5 divided by g of 5. So plug everything in. So -2 times 5 squared minus 5 minus 12. And then 5 plus 7. So this is 12. So 5 squared is 25. So -2 times 25 minus 5 minus 12. So negative 2 times 25 is negative 50 minus 5 minus 12. So we have negative 55 and negative 12. So we have negative 67 and 12. Now we're taking this answer and dividing it by this answer. So negative 67 divided by 12. All right, so f over g of 5 equals. Now we cannot simplify 67 over 12. They have 0 things in common. I'm pretty sure 67 might even be a prime number. So we're actually just going to leave it as negative 67 over 12. You don't even need to get the decimal equivalent unless a question specifically asks for the decimal equivalent. All right, so that's all of them with the operations. So now we have something what's called composition of functions. And what composition of function is where it's a way to combine functions, but it's taking one function and substituting it in completely to another function. So if we have f of x and g of x, the composition of that is f of, and this open circle is read as of, so f of g of x. It's defined as putting g of x in place of x in the f of x function. I know it sounds really confusing, and we're going to work through a bunch of examples. Okay. So we have, for 9, we have f of g of x. So it's always the second one gets replaced in the first one. So in this set of examples, f of x equals x squared plus 8, and g of x equals x minus 1. So because g is the second function, we're taking this x minus 1 and putting it in place of x in the first function. So it becomes x minus 1 squared plus 8. And now we're going to simplify this as much as we can. So remember, when you have a quantity squared, you do not square each individual term. Squared means you are taking something and multiplying 2 of them together. So we have x minus 1 times x minus 1 plus 8. We'll deal with the plus 8 after we multiply these. So x times x is x squared. X times negative 1 is negative 1x. Negative 1 times x is negative 1x as well. And the negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1. And then just bring down this plus 8. And now we're just combining like terms. So there aren't any more x squared, so that's going to stay x squared. And then negative 1x and negative 1x is negative 2x. And then 1 plus 8 is 9, so plus 9. So our composite function of f of g, which looks like fog, of x equals x squared minus 2x plus 9. And there we go. So we took the second function and placed it in for x in the first function. And these ones are different because you plug them in right to left. Okay, so if you have 4 functions, it just goes right to left. So the fourth one will go in the third, that answer will go in the second, that answer will go in the first. Okay. So for number 10, we have h of g of x. So in this set of examples, h of x is 5x minus 3, and g of x is x minus 1. So g is the second one, so that means x minus 1 is going in for x in the h of x function. So we have 5 times x minus 1 minus 3. So distribute your 5 in, so we have 5x minus 5 minus 3. So we have 5x minus 8. So h of g of x equals 5x minus 8. All right, number 11. So we have f of h of x. So we are using the same 2 functions we've already used previously, except now 5x minus 3, this whole quantity, is being plugged into x here. So we have 5x minus 3 squared plus 8. So write this out because you're multiplying two of them together. So 5x minus 3 times 5x minus 3 plus 8. All right, I'll draw the lines for these so that we know what we're multiplying. So 5x times 5x is 25x squared. 5x times negative 3 is negative 15x. Negative 3 times 5x is negative 15x. Negative 3 times negative 3 is 9. So plus 9, and then bring down that plus 8. And now combine like terms. I'm going to write the f of h of x over here. So there aren't any more x squareds. So 25x squared minus 30x is negative 15, and negative 15 is negative 30. And then 9 plus 8 is 17. And there we go. That's our final answer. So f of h of x equals 25x squared minus 30x plus 17. Right, moving on to number 12. So now we have numbers involved. So this is h of f of negative 2. So what that means is you're going to plug the negative 2 into the f of x function, and then take that answer and plug it into the h of x function. So we're still working right to left, and I always write out the functions in that order, which is why I have h of x here and f of x here. Now we're going to take negative 2 and plug it in over here. So we have negative 2 squared plus 8. So negative 2 squared is 4. So 4 plus 8. And then 4 plus 8 is 12. Now we're taking the 12 because it's h of f of negative 2. So now we have to take this answer and plug it in to this x. So we have 5 times 12 minus 3. So 5 times 12 is 60. So we have 60 minus 3, which is 57. So h of f of negative 2 equals 57. And moving on to 13, which I believe is the last example. And it is the longest because we have g of h of f of x. Okay, so remember we start right and go left. So we're taking x squared plus 8 and plugging it into the h of x function. So we have 5 times x squared plus 8 minus 3. All right, we're going to simplify this as much as we can first. So distribute this so that we get 5x squared plus 40 minus 3. And then the only like terms or common terms we have are 40 minus 3. So we have 5x squared plus 37. And now we're going to take all of this, because it's the answer of f of h, and we're going to take that and plug it in for x in this function. So we have 5x squared plus 37 minus 1. You only have one set of common terms, so 37 minus 1 is 36. So g of h of f of x equals 5x squared plus 36. And that is the final answer for this problem. And that's it for this set of notes.